How's it going, guys? Now, well, some people get their kicks from visiting war zones like myself or riding motorcycles. My next guest, John, gets his kicks from climbing mountains. He is an author, keynote speaker, and has climbed all seven of the tallest mountains on each continent, including Antarctica, nearly getting killed a couple of times along the way. John, welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you so much for having me here with you.
So, John, your story is an interesting one. You've recently released a new book called The Warrior Challenge, which is 8 quests for young men. Yeah, there we go. It's all about rites of passage for young men in a time where I really feel that young men and boys need a bit of masculine development, masculine guidance. So fair play for writing that. And it's really interesting that you took all those experience you had from traveling all these mountains and distilled it down into something that basically could be used for everybody. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that very much. It was definitely a piece of passion and what came after my lessons learned from climbing all these mountains all around the world. And like you, world traveler, been to 67 countries. So I took the most
67, nice.
amazing stories I've ever heard from the most incredible travelers I've ever come across, and I put them all in this book here.
And you were 9 years trying to get this goal down, all 9 summits, right? Or all, sorry, all 5 summits.
Yeah, the numbers get all mixed up, right?
So you know what? It's these headphones. I can't hear myself, so it's just.
But no, it's all good.
So let's launch into your story. What made you decide to do this?
I didn't decide to do this until I was halfway through it. I had gone to South America and climbed the tallest mountain there, Aconcagua, and failed at getting to the summit. And as a result of that failure, it challenged me. It was like, do you have what it takes?
Let's, before you go into that, is this the story that I heard on Man Talks? Was it that mountain that was perilous for your friends?
I'm not sure. I've told a few stories about it, so you tell me.
What mountain was it that people you decided to stay behind, and the people who went ahead of you, they end up perishing?
Yeah, that's this mountain. That's
okay.
Aconcagua.
So wait, finish the story, and then let's go back to that story, because that's an amazing story.
All right. So I'm challenged on this mountain as a part of what you just mentioned right there, and the storms and how we couldn't make it to the summit. And then I went to Alaska because I was wanting to learn what I messed up. So I went and took a training course to get more technical skills and proficient, climbed Denali, succeeded at it, went and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Elbrus in Europe, the tallest mountain in Europe. And then I'm thinking, all right, maybe I do have what it takes to climb all 7 summits, the tallest on each continent. So it was a progressive challenge that I didn't know I wanted to complete the entire challenge until I was already well into the journey.
Oh, I like that. So obviously, this comes back to a question that I got from one of my viewers/listeners. I'll ask you at the end, but what was it in terms of technical challenge? What kind of experience did you have prior to when you started climbing?
I was actually a more technical rock climber and more skilled with ropes and vertical rock climbing. That's kind of what we call technical. I was better at that first. And then I realized my legs were stronger at actually getting to the climbs than I was at my arms and my upper body at climbing up the climbs. And so I kind of made that slow transition, which played out well when I came to the technical parts of the mountains, which are the steepest parts where you need the rope and the vertical movement skills. And does that answer your question, or did I miss the key point of it?
No, that's pretty spot on. Tell us about this story from South America. Your first climb.
We went to this mountain completely novices, beginners, unprepared. And by unprepared, I mean over-prepared, in that we had way too much weight on our backs. Like, we went in heavy, like 90 pounds where it was on our backs, and we were poor college students, and so we couldn't really afford to get the mule services, which are what carry most of the gear into base camp for other climbers. You pay extra, and the mule, the Grijalis group is what they're called. They'll carry the gear in. So by the time we get to base camp, we're completely exhausted. On the way in, we had met a guy who kept asking, hey, let's climb the Polish Glacier. Let's climb the Polish Glacier. And that's a 60-degree ice slope. It's a more direct but more technical route from base camp straight up to 1, 2, and then straight to the summit, versus the other routes, which kind of go in a circle around the mountain, taking the easy. It's easy, yeah, is like a relative term, but easier for sure. So he's trying to get somebody to go with him. He finally finds somebody, and he decides that the ice was too slick. It's what we call blue ice. Can't get any ice axe into it. On our boots, we wear crampons, these 12 steel points that bite into the ice for extra grip. And like they aren't even going into the ice, so he has no traction. He decides to turn around and walk back. He slips, falls, and he perishes as a result of that fall. So we're seeing this from a distance, this whole thing unfold, and we're just rocked emotionally. We got to know him a little bit over the course of 5 or 6 days as a friend, and we're just devastated for this guy and his family. We decided that after 2 or 3 days of kind of sitting on that, we were going to keep going, and that's what the spirit of what he wanted for everybody there. He was this jovial guy, wanted everybody to summit. So we decided to summit. And we get a little bit higher, and this big lenticular cloud forms over the mountain, and that says that a huge storm is coming in. And sure enough, the next day,
where did you learn about that? The clouds.
That was in reading and studying about the mountain and meteorology. So I thought, if I'm going to go put myself into these perilous situations, I should know at least a little bit about what's going on with some of the dangers. And so that was a little snippet I learned in one of the books on the mountain, Aconcagua, that I read by a guy named Harry Kickstra. So I told the people that I was there at the camp with, like, hey, this is not the right day to climb. There's this huge lenticular cloud. They went ahead and climbed, and I was amongst the last people to see that party alive. So they went off and tried to summit, and they died on their way up to the summit. And so this was my introduction to mountaineering and to climbing in big mountains.
And you're like, oh, let's go again.
Some weird part of me, some sick part of me said, yeah, let's go for it.
I kind of know what you're talking about, because I recently had my first, bought a sailboat, and I recently had my first sailing experience. And we end up having a fire in the engine room. I got rescued by the Coast Guard. But the first thing I want to do when I get it fixed is go back out and sail it again. So I get the appeal of the danger.
Okay, so people ask all the time, like, what would make you want to keep going? And you've had the same experience in a different set of circumstances. What for you? Like, how do you answer that? Because I think that we get each other in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what kind of struck me about you, because my story is more so with war zone stuff. I kept going to more extreme places. It started off with Cote d'Ivoire, Congo, then I went to Syria, Somalia. And by the end of it, I was going dressed as a Mexican pirate, literally with sombrero, sword, fake mustaches. I'm serious there. My last book is called My Life as a Mexican Pirate. It's actually based on this. So I know what it's like to take things to extremes. There's an addictive quality to risk and challenge. But anyway, enough about me, right? All my audience know about that. Back to yourself. So this is quite an incredible experience. How do they die? How do the people die? Was it cold? Was it wind?
The first gentleman, Stefan, passed away as a result of the impact of the fall. There were 3 who passed away in that second party. 2 survived in the group, and they died because of a combination of altitude illness. When you get above 8,000 feet, which is 2,500 meters or so, there's 3 conditions that start. The first one is acute mountain sickness, and that's just when I'm dizzy, I'm out of breath, you might vomit, you feel totally lethargic, like you don't want to do anything. When that gets worse, it turns into the next 2. One can be pulmonary edema, which is when your lungs fill up with fluid.
That happened to you, right?
That has happened to me. Yeah, on this mountain it did not, but that's one of the 2 conditions. And then the other is cerebral edema, which is when your brain starts swelling, crushing your cerebral cortex. So, what happened to these guys, to your question, is probably cerebral edema combined with the exposure and the storm. So because they couldn't get down, they're feeling lethargic, their brains are not processing correctly, they make poor decisions, and then they end up exposing their fingers, and it all cascades on mountains. Like if your fingers get cold, you can't open your backpack. If you can't open your backpack, you can't get the food or the extra jacket that you need to warm up. You can't get that, and then that's when you start passing. That's when your body starts shutting down, and you die.
Well, sounds harrowing. And was how you said it was over 8,000 feet in South America? Is that the second highest of the 7 summits, or?
So clarification, that's where altitude sickness can start occurring. This mountain is 22,900, I think 85 feet, which if I remember correctly is just under 7,000 meters.
Okay, still pretty high. What's in terms of rank order? Is one of the questions I got. In terms of difficulty of the 7 summits, what is the hardest and what is the easiest? I take it Kilimanjaro is probably the easiest, is it?
If you count Australia as having one of the tallest, then that's Kosciuszko, which is like it's a ski hill.
It's a ski hill.
Somewhere in Australia. I'm not even sure where there's a mountain in Australia. So I opted to do instead the tallest in the Oceania continent, which is in Indonesia, and that's 16,000. So to the question, it would go. I would say Kilimanjaro
is
easiest.
That Mount Kilabulu in Borneo, or Mount what's the name? No.
It's called Karsten's Pyramid, and it's over on Papua.
Papua. Okay. Yeah. Technicality there. That's a real technicality.
But it sure is.
I definitely consider Papua New Guinea part of Oceania, but I'm going to give it to you.
It's on the Indonesian side, so it depends on what your political definition of it. Yeah.
Melanesian. I think you get away with it. You get away.
Cool, man. Thanks. You know, they actually came out with an 8th continent now. They're calling it Zealandia, which is New Caledonia and New Zealand.
They get their own continent now?
They're saying there's another one.
Oh God. Oh, you mean like from the tectonic point of view?
Yeah, from the tectonic plate point of view. Oh, so to the question, Kilimanjaro, you do say no way. Kilimanjaro, Elbrus, which is in Europe, I would give second. Third up on that list, I would probably put even Karsten's Pyramid, and then Karsten's Pyramid, and then moving up from there, you've got Aconcagua, then Denali, then Everest. I would pair Elbrus and Vinson in Antarctica for physical difficulty. So I left out Antarctica.
So Vincent, is it? In Antarctica, that's the name of it? Mount Vincent?
It's Vinson, Vinson.
I've been to Antarctica myself, actually.
You have?
Yeah. It's an amazing place. Absolutely amazing. Whereabouts is the mountain?
It's in the Ellsworth mountain range in the shoulder blade of the peninsula.
Okay. Is it near okay? Yes. Because it's there's a lot of ridge. There's a lot of mountainous terrain up there. But yeah, it's amazing with all the penguins and how much color they crap every color of the rainbow, and the whales and the volcanoes and all that stuff. It's quite a fascinating place.
So I actually saw a totally different side of it, and I loved it equally, but I never saw the penguins.
White, right?
It was just bloody white everywhere. I mean, white snow, then you have this sharp contrast to the blue sky and black rock, and that was all I saw. And when I got back to Punta Arenas in Chile, I was like, green, orange, this is amazing. There's other colors other than blue, white, and black. It was really a crazy contrast, but there was no life. 16 days we spent down there.
16 days. You're saying there's no life. 16 days. Wow.
Nothing. Not even a bird the entire time.
And how did you get there?
Get down to Punta Arenas, the southern tip of Chile, and then you fly on an Ilyushin aircraft. I think there's only 2 of these aircrafts in the world. They can carry 58,000 pounds, and it flies from, I guess, divide 2.2 for stone for folks over not in the United States.
I'm Irish. We do kilos, so.
Oh, yep. Divide 2.2 for your kilo, I think, or times 2. I don't know. Anyway, fly from there, get to 4.5 hours to the Union Glacier, which is in Antarctica, and the back of the aircraft opens up, and these trucks are rolling out of the airplane that we had flown over with. And then from there, we take a Twin Otter, which is an aircraft that has skis on the bottom of it. and that flies us another hour deeper inland, drops us off, and turns around and flies off. And man, there is no, like, you've been in some isolated places. To have that plane fly away when you're in the middle of Antarctica and you don't know if it'll be like 10 days or 2 months until it can get back to you because weather could stop it from getting back. That is a crazy, crazy experience.
Wow. And you're saying it's equally as challenging, or you pair it with Everest? Just because the conditions.
So
How cold is
I
it?
would compare, I wouldn't compare it with Everest. I'd compare it like a smaller Denali or like a more difficult Elbrus.
Okay, and how many people did that with you?
Let's see. We had a team of 8 total and 7 completed nine total and 8 completed the climb.
Oh, I feel bad for the person who didn't do it.
Yeah,
You got all
he
the way
feels
out
bad
there.
too.
Oh God. Which begs the question: all of this doesn't sound cheap. How did you afford to do all these excursions?
Excellent point, or excellent question. I am an entrepreneur, and so I'm not sponsored. I've raised all the money on my own through the business pursuits that I have. I've built
Oh,
membership
respect,
websites.
bro. That's pretty.
Boom!
That's pretty cool.
I built membership websites, did one on dog training, did one on horse training. Don't know anything about those subjects, but found people who did, built the sites for them, sold the sites, and then used the money to go climb.
Dope, man. That's what I like to hear. That's pretty cool. I'm a fellow entrepreneur. I own a few bars here in Malta, and I can
Oh,
respect
nice.
that. I can respect that. So that answers that question. So tell me about Everest. Like
Mm.
I've always been curious. I've been tempted myself now about this, but it's no joke. What's involved in an Everest climb?
So Everest is a 2-month expedition. The time commitment alone is a huge barrier for a lot of people.
And the
I took
permit's like
9
10K or 10K just for the permit, right?
just for the permit. It's 10K. I think it might have increased. I'm not sure on that one, but recently it went up. And the reason it's such a barrier to so many people is because of the altitude. Like Aconcagua was the next tallest mountain on any other continent at 22,800 feet or 900 feet. Everest is a full mile taller than that. And that gives you exponentially higher chances to get cerebral edema or pulmonary edema. But I think probably the biggest challenge for most people when climbing is their emotional endurance runs out after about 2 weeks. So you'll see these really tough, young, 20-ish year old mountaineers that are crushing it in the beginning of the climb. And after a month, 5 weeks in, they start dropping off, and it's the 30 and 40-year-old climbers who end up succeeding at higher rates of success, not because they're physically stronger, but because they just know how to like grunt through and
Grit.
endure and grit. They know how to not let complainers get to them or whiners affect their own spirit, and they know what they're there for, and they're not taking no for an answer.
Well, that's quite interesting. That's very interesting. And it's a psychological ascent as much as
Mm-hmm.
a physical one.
That's what makes it harder.
And how much preparation did you have to do for Everest? And I presume you said it was 2 months, so you start right down low. I presume you start from Kathmandu, or do
Yeah.
you climatize there and then you go up to base camp, or do you climb to base camp?
Fly into Kathmandu, then fly to a little tiny town called Lukla. If you want to go from Kathmandu to Lukla by bus, it takes like 3 weeks, but it doesn't give you any altitude advantage. So it's more just like, hey, do you want to see that part of the country as a traveler?
I was there 2 years ago. I was in Nepal. Beautiful place. Beautiful.
I love it. Did you trek?
No, you know what? I got I got this worm. I nearly died in Nepal, actually. I got off the plane. I got some worm in Oman. I was at a wedding. And when I got off the plane, I literally collapsed on the tarmac, screaming for an ambulance.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like I had gastroenteritis, because I had something like that before. You know, I was puking up everything, bile, just kept puking up bile, diarrhea, the whole work. And no matter what they gave me, what injections they gave me, it wasn't working. And I knew this was much worse than gastroenteritis. The closest I ever came to dying, actually. Well, I felt like I was dying. And I was like, test everything, test my stool, test everything. And what they found, then they did that. They kept testing and they couldn't find anything. And then when they checked my stool, they found eggs. in my
Eggs?
stool. Eggs. There was some worm. I
Oh
can't
my
remember the name.
gosh.
Some worm had gotten into me and was basically eating me from the inside.
Dude, Mark.
This thing kills 55,000 people a year. This
That
worm.
specific strain of worm or
Yeah,
egg from the worm.
yeah. And thank God they found it because they were like, oh, thank God I kept paying them. I kept doing tests because I knew it was bad. And I was out of action the whole trip in the past. So just the last 2 days, I got a helicopter. I just rented a helicopter, went up to Annapurna base camp, and that.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that was why I cheated a bit on my trek.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah,
mean, that's a danger in Nepal, and we all got some kind of stomach issue throughout the 2 months that
jelly
we're there.
belly.
Yeah. We're eating yak. That's just like we're eating like donkey bits and like chickens that are local to every village we would walk through. So we get to Lukla. It's a 10-day walk to get to base camp. Once you get to base camp, then you start the acclimatization process. If you were to just go straight from base camp right up to the summit, theoretically you could do it in one push because of the distance and the like the physical effort involved. But because you'd be going from 17,500 feet up to 29,000 feet, 8,848 meters, that change of elevation would kill you. So it takes so long because you have, like, if you and I were helicoptered and drop off on the summit right now, we'd die within 3 to 5 minutes. That's
What?
yeah, seriously, we'd be like, our brains would swell, our lungs would fill with fluid, and we'd drop dead. We could not
Whoa.
last on the summit. So we get used to it by going up to a mountain peak or up higher on the climb and then back down to base camp. So we climb a side mountain called Lobuche, come back down to base camp. The purpose of that is to avoid the first section on Everest, which is the Kumbu Ice Fall. It's a 2,500 foot frozen waterfall. So
I
these
think I've
blocks,
seen that in the documentary.
that's where you see
Look,
guys like walking over ladders and these huge gaps and holes in the ice.
terrifying.
That's where it all is. That's the most dangerous part of the climb,
You
right
said
out
you
of the
avoid
gate.
that?
So we avoid it in the acclimatization process. So we go up to like get a taste of this thin air on a different mountain. That helps us to get used to what we'll then face when we get to Everest. Because after we go up to Camp 1, we have to go back down to base camp again.
Oh, wow.
So it
Okay,
stops us
interesting.
from. Is that you with me? So then we go like up to Camp 2, back down, up to Camp 3, back down. Each time getting a quick sip of
It's a
this thin
deload.
air. Yeah, and it tricks your body into thinking, oh, we're going to live up here, so I got to make all these red blood cells. But you're actually recovering back down at base camp where all those blood cells can actually be created.
Wow. Okay, and that ice fall, that looks intense. I mean, you're putting ladders over these crevices that it just seem to be bottomless, like doorways to hell. That's the thing that's where I hate heights. That just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yep, they're garden ladders. They're garden ladders tied together with like cheap nylon rope, and
Some Nepalese guy like, yeah, don't worry, my wife made them. It's good.
Seriously, man. And you're like, cool. Well, these are the professionals, so I gotta trust them. And then you just put one foot in front of the other, and you're wearing the crampons. So like each spike of the crampons are what's gripping the rungs of the ladder. So I'd size my crampons to like fit the rungs rather than fitting my boots. So I've got these wobbly crampons, but they fit the rungs on the ladder a little bit better because I just needed to change the size a bit. And you cross these things and you're looking down, and they come to a point down at the bottom of them. Sometimes you can't even see to the base of them because it just gets darker and darker and darker. But they come to this V. So if you fall in, you're gonna get wedged into that V in this slippery ice, and it's just sheet ice. And then like over hours, the way you would die is the ice would just slowly move because it's a glacier. And you would just get crushed in there.
Oh, that's a crappy way to die.
So yeah, to say the least. So you're just like worrying about this happening at every step.
Yeah, when you're falling, you're like, at least it'll be a quick death. You get wedged in
Yep.
there.
Then you've got like a broken leg and you're in there forever, right?
Oh no! Oh god! Is that the most dangerous part, or I presume the death zone up the top is the most dangerous part? So after the ice wall, what happens?
It flattens out a little bit, and you get up to camp. So top of the ice wall, the Kumbu Ice Fall is Camp 1, and then you get a little flatter section, maybe a 15-degree slope up to Camp 2. Then you get a steep section again, which is the Lhotse face. This is like a 45, 50-degree slope. On the side of this cliff is Camp 3. And so you like dig a flat platform into the edge of this cliff, and your
that's not
tent
nice.
sits there. And people have died by waking up in the middle of the night to take a wee. They stand up and they're not tied in or harnessed in, and they slip and fall and go all the way back down where they climbed from and fall into those crevasses from the Kumbu Ice Fall down below. From Camp 3 up to, that's the way you don't want to go.
That's a bad wee.
That's a bad wee. Then up to Camp 4, that's at 26,000 feet above sea level. Sorry, my meterage is not what it once was. And
most of my audience are American, so.
Fair enough. And then that final push, we leave at 7 p.m. in order to climb through the night, with the goal of getting back down before the following afternoon's storms hit.
You say it like it's gonna happen. Is there always storms?
Almost guaranteed.
Wow, yeah. It's very predictable, the weather patterns.
Afternoon storm is like pretty darn high chance that you're gonna get that, and so maximize the best chance of safety by climbing all throughout the darkness. All you can see is a 100-foot beam of light in front of you. We were in the Milky Way galaxy once the clouds opened up, so you've just got like stars above you, and you're so high above the horizon line that you're looking down on the stars. So you feel like you're just walking through space with ice whipping into your goggles. Every inch of skin is completely covered up because if anything is exposed, your fingers, even the little slit of like your cheek underneath the mask and your face mask, if even that's exposed, you've got 3 to 5 minutes before it completely freezes. And the only treatment once you have frostbite is to remove that finger or toe or whatever else got frozen off. So we get to the summit at sunrise, and then it took until 8:30 p.m. to get back down to where I stopped that day, which was at Camp 2. And then the next day was back to
a 24-hour thing. And tell me about this. I got so many questions, but what was the feeling like when you get to the top? Was that your last mountain, or Antarctica was your last mountain, I believe? Was it?
Yeah, Everest was my 5th of the 7 summits. The feeling, terrified, overjoyed. I'd been dreaming about this for 17 years. You know, it's 9 months of preparation and 2 months on the mountain. So here's like a year of my life basically dedicated to this climb. So I'm overwhelmed, but my oxygen was also leaking, and I'd been told to turn back already, but fortunately we like patched up where the leak was. So I had turned around thinking I had quit on it. Then I turned around again, going back up to the top once we fixed the leak. So I'm like disoriented.
So you thought you were gonna not make it.
Totally, yeah. Like the whole time,
just before you hit the summit, your oxygen was leaking. You had to turn back.
So we're given 2 bottles of oxygen. Each is meant to last for 10 hours on the flow setting of 3. I backed it off to number 1 because the first one had run out so quickly. I had climbed Everest without oxygen for about an hour, and then we found my second fresh bottle. We keep climbing because we think we figured out the problem. Didn't figure out the problem though; it kept leaking. And when I was running low on air, we were above the Hillary steps. So at that point, there's only like an hour or so remaining to get to the top.
Is that like the death zone?
We're well into the death zone at this point. Anything past Camp 4 is the death zone. So all of Summit Day is
on the way.
There were definitely bodies on the way. Yep.
And so what did you feel like when they were told you got a leak of oxygen and you thought you had to turn back? You must have felt seriously disappointed.
Oh, of course, man. I'm crying and there's like tears that are freezing on my cheeks underneath the goggles as I'm like walking down, and I'm looking up. I can see the summit. I could even hear people like screaming and taking pictures on top of the summit. And like, I'm like, you're kidding. Like, it's right there and we've got to turn around. It was a total heartbreak. I mean, this is the thing I had dropped 50 grand on to come climb. I've been preparing for a year. That's a massive disappointment. It was also a feeling of trust though, because I I told my family, I told my guide, I told whose name is Nuru, local to Nepal. He's a Sherpa. I told him, like, hey, you're in charge. You're the boss here. And I trusted him the whole way up to that point, and I had no reason not to trust him in that decision that we had to turn around.
And was he the one who said, or how did you go about fixing it? He's like, listen, we'll try and fix it. Or did you like say, please, man, is there anything we can do?
I had about 15 seconds of, come on, like, please, it's right there. Let's just go for it. And he says, no, no, no. So we turn back down. We get to the top of the Hillary Step. And if you've ever seen these pictures where there's like a long line of climbers on Everest, it's caused from the Hillary Step, because there's one way up and one way down. So that's where the bottlenecking occurs. So I'm waiting there for my turn to go down, and out of nowhere, up the Hillary Step comes this guide from Seattle, Washington, Justin Murley. And he's like, congratulations, dude, you got it. Summit of Everest. Way to go, bro. He like totally thinks that I made it. And I'm like, ooh. So I say, I didn't make it. Like, we had to turn back. He's like, let me check out what's going on. And he like takes a look, and he sees that the little rubber washer that connects the regulator to the oxygen bottle, it became cracked because of the cold. So that's where the air was leaking out of. He goes, I got you. He pulls his tea bottle out of his backpack, plants it in the snow, opens it up. There's steam coming out. I'm like, dude, you're wasting time. What, are we going to sit and have 3 cups of tea here, man? Like, this is a joke. Yeah. He takes the regulator, he dips it into the tea bottle, and screws it back in. I'm like, dude, this guy's lost his mind. He says, what does water do when it freezes? It expands, right? Yeah. So that expanding, freezing tea seals up the leak. He pats me on the back. He says, go up to the summit, get your photos, get back down. You're on borrowed time.
Sweet. Oh, how did you feel then? That was probably better than the summit.
Yeah, I wanted to kiss the guy, man. I was like, holy cow, this is the greatest gift of all time. It was amazing.
Oh, and then you eventually got to the top after that, thinking you weren't going to make it. And I'd say it was, how much time did you get up there to kind of take it all in?
11 minutes.
11 minutes is probably enough. It must feel, well, it must feel, I mean, I'm curious about the overcrowding situation that I hear about. Is because of that? It's basically, you're limited because there's other people who want to climb up. Does it feel busy when you're on the Hillary Step? Because then there was that famous picture last year of the bottleneck. Right.
So if you took a photograph of Los Angeles highway traffic at the right moment, you would think that highway is an absolute disaster. Yeah. If you took a photograph of that at a different time of the exact same day, you would think, what are people talking about traffic in LA? And so my strategy was to just go when other people weren't going. And I would leave super early or well after everyone else had gone. So I never experienced waiting for more than 5 or 10 minutes. When there are those bottlenecks, it's because a weather window opens up, everybody gets antsy, everybody goes all at once. And then because of that, there's only like one path, and you can make a photograph look super crowded and congested. But in that picture, you count the number of people, it's like 50 or 60 people, which is not that many summits for a mountain in a single day, especially a mountain so enormous. So I didn't find a huge problem with overcrowding on the mountain, but I can certainly see how some people would if they made alternate decisions or had alternate luck than I did.
So for you, it didn't take away anything from the experience that there was like, because I know like in my mind, it's like you almost want to be the only person on the mountain. It's like it's just you and you're on the top of the world. It didn't devalue the thing. Of course, it didn't with your story. You're like yes.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, all right.
You made it better because all these other people did it and you didn't. So that made it way worse.
I love the team aspect of mountaineering. Yeah. I love being able to root other people on, to cheer them on, to give them encouragement, to like pass out Cliff Bars and energy gels to people if they're needing extra food. I like asking for help when I need it. I think that makes climbing way more special of an experience. I don't think that this idea of the lone wolf in the mountains is entertaining. beyond an Instagram photo.
I think you did it right leaving Antarctica for the last one, because that is probably the most least visited summit. I
I
mean,
think that's
obviously,
accurate.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people climb the tallest mountain in Antarctica? Literally, how many?
I actually don't know the number to that.
Let
I think
alone
it's
7 summits. How many people climb the 7 summits?
that's in the 500 range now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm trying to do every
We
country, and I think
we
that's
we have a race with people who have orbited in space and those who have climbed the 7 summits, and
oh
it's like
yeah,
neck and neck. We're always like passing one another up, but it
really
looks like with space tourism that now that's going to cause so many more people to be up there that 7 summiters will be more rare of a breed than
seven
having
summiters. You guys got a
orbited in
club name
space.
and stuff. I looked it
There's a
up. You guys
club,
got
man.
logos. You ain't playing. It's
Ka-ching!
it's like I'm one of these guys who's trying to do every country, and there's that similar thing of guys who visit every country, and girls, should I say?
You're
Yeah.
going for it? You're going for all, what is it, 212 now or 180? What are we at now for?
Well, 197.6, depending on your politics. I
Okay.
could have gotten a lot earlier, but I purposely slowed down. I'm not in any rush. I know a guy who did it, and he had a bit of a crisis. He was in his mid-30s, and he was like, "What am I going to do with the rest of my life?" I hit my 100 country when I was 30, and then I purposely decided to slow down, because I want to be cruising into my last country when I'm like 70. That sounds good to me. So that way I'm enjoying the ride a bit more, because it was in a bit of a rush, and I don't want to be in a bit of a rush. So I'm taking it easy. I'm not. It's just one of those life goals that are there, but I'm not in a rush, because it's all about the journey. So I tell myself. But yeah. But I want to have a family. I want to go to the last country with my grandchildren. That sounds like a
That's
better one.
beautiful, man. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, let me ask you a question. If a border changes and it creates a new country that you then haven't been to, but you were previously in the country, will you count that, or do you have to go to the new country?
If I was there, if I was actually in the, let's say it was a new country, but I was in the land, I would count it. So, for example, Somaliland, I was there. If that became independent tomorrow, I would count it. Same with Kosovo or Palestine or any of those ones,
Yeah.
or Abkhazia. I've been to Abkhazia, Nagorno-Karabakh, all these Transnistria, all these weird self-proclaimed republics. So I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking ahead which ones are likely to become independent.
How about airports? Does that count as a visit for
No.
you? Like a connect? Good man.
No
We're counting
way.
the right way.
No chance. No chance. Like I have to spend at least. You don't have to be out there. I used to have a rule. I have to have a pint there. I have to go out into the city, have a beer at
Nice.
least. No, but I think the shortest time I ever spent in the country was. I mean, I've always done at least a day. I don't do the.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the Cayman Islands for only a little bit, but that's not a country. I don't count it. So, yeah, but I'm pretty serious about doing it properly. I'm only cheating myself. This is not ego, because my ego counting was actually of a sexual nature. Really, and I had a very those. I don't know if you're familiar with my background, but I was quite notorious for capturing the flag in my in my 20s. I was kind of like a world champion at that. I used to be into pickup and was an expert at the dating scene and all that kind of thing. My audience is very much red-blooded males, young guys.
I see that in some of these comments coming through.
Oh yeah. But basically, it's like Naughty Nomad. It's like the number one travel resource on the internet for in men's travel. So it's basically travel,
Got
but
you.
dedicated towards men. So nothing seedy, just regular guys. It's like Lonely Planet, but with the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's kind of how it is. But definitely, adventure is a big part of it. I love adventure of all sorts, So, I've had enough. I've had enough strokes of the ego in that regard, that I don't have to worry about the country thing too much. And I'm also growing and developing, from a place of masculine development inward. And that's why actually I got interested in you and your book, because, which it's a nice segue onto your book. The whole the warrior challenge is the rites of passage. You write about rites of passage, and I found when I went through my journey, working with numbers and doing all these, similar to yourself, like you have goals and you achieve them. And then I got more satisfaction then from things like, I started to go to the gym, started to learn martial arts. I started to look for more healthier ways to express my masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I found I got a lot more satisfaction by exploring other journeys. And I think a lot of the reason why I kind of went a bit wayward with I would say my, not an addiction, but my excesses, was because maybe I didn't have that way, that rite of passage, that moment of that moment of sorry, I'm not being very articulate at the moment. In your book, right, you talk about rites of passage and how there's a lack
Yeah.
of that.
Right.
I think in modern society, back in the day, we did have rites of passage. And I think we've a lost generation of men because there's no systems in place and religion's gone out the window, and we have this kind of giant internet culture or monoculture, that there's no direction for young men. And what is that why you decided to write your book, or what inspired you to write the Warrior Challenge?
I wanted to write this book because climbing these 7 summits was my own self-imposed rite of passage. I mentioned earlier that I didn't know why I was doing it in the beginning, but in hindsight, I can say that this was my journey from going from boyhood to manhood, where now there's no question, like there's no bit of man boy in me that I'm like wondering about who I am in this world, whether I have the capability to provide for my family or myself. Like, I'm confident in who I am. Had I had a resource like this book, I don't know that I would have needed to go on that 9-year journey, climbing all these mountains and traveling to all these places to feel that level of confidence and own that level of belief in myself. So I wanted to write this to provide a resource for young men ages 10 to 18. So if you're listening to this, you have a nephew, if you have a son, this is the book for him. It's called The Warrior Challenge: 8 Quests for Boys to Grow Up with Kindness, Courage, and Grit. And man, while we're talking about these,
I think I prepared a screenshot here. Actually, I have it here.
Oh, look at this! Look at this!
Yeah. And 5 stars, excellent rating, 37 ratings, guys. It's very well received. So if any of you guys, I know some of my audience definitely have children. I know some of my audience definitely have children that they don't know about. Or there's some on the way. But for the future, I think this is it's a great thing you've done here by making this. Yeah.
This is not a watering down of masculinity either, but it is an ownership of, if things hurt, how do you handle those in a healthy, proper way? So I really strove to strike a balance between keeping, like, a man is a man, and I'm not going to apologize for that. But also, I think there's some things that we have that are destructive, and when we have to face our own inner demons, I think guys often turn to being overly nice is one way that many guys cover up their inner demons.
Oh yeah,
we'd be overly tough. Go ahead.
No, that's actually, I mean, we talk about that a lot in my sphere. We call it red pilling, but the whole beta male syndrome, people, I mean, this is quite common, this phenomenon where men try to mask their masculinity to appeal to society and the fairer sex.
Yes.
I mean, did you get any pushback for making this book for boys?
Specifically for boys?
Yeah, like did you get any pushback? Like, why didn't you write this for women and men? Did you get anything like that?
Of course. I get that in almost every interview that I do. Like, what about girls? How come girls can't read this as well? And my answer is,
I'm not going to give you that.
Like, they can. Absolutely. Girls can read this, but this is specifically written for the heart and the soul of a young man who chooses
men and women are different. You're preaching to the choir here. You don't need to explain it to me, but men and women are different. Yeah, but I imagine in the modern age, you could come up against a bit of resistance. I certainly have in my time blogging and that kind of thing, but it's been nothing too negative.
The early reviews were pretty cutting. There was a lot of like meh response, or like 1 star, ignores women.
White,
Why can't
straight, male, right hook. Ah! For boys.
yes. I mean, it's kind of what happened. Yeah. And
Sure.
and at first that shook me a bit, because that was the most aggressive, random feedback I'd have from people who clearly had not read the thing.
Of course.
And
They never
when
did.
I took so when I took a moment to ground myself and to reconnect with what's here and my own sense of truth, like, well, screw you, like this stuff. I mean, you saw by those reviews that are there now that makes like 5 stars through and through from people, but it's not the reviews that matter. It's my own sense of like, this is the stuff that will change a person's life if they own it and they adopt it.
And what made you settle on 8 quests exactly?
Looking for the most amazing stories of badass dudes throughout history as the spearhead or the figurehead of each of the 8 quests. So I found
Nice.
8. That was part of it. But then I also interviewed the most amazing people that I had met in all my travels to these 67 countries, asking them, what do you think makes a man? What do guys need to know in today's world? And they always circled back on, coincidentally, 8 traits. And so I found these 8 guys. Yeah, it was like there's this pattern of these like awesome 8 dudes who are somehow exemplifying these same 8 traits. So throughout this book, you're living these stories. Like you're in Africa being confronted by a Maasai warrior, being asked to hunt a lion by a real life guy named Kakuta Hamisi, who's the head of the Maasai Association. Then in the next chapter, you're Danny Way jumping over the Great Wall of China, learning self-awareness. Then you're barreling down a dirt road.
In parkour, or what's
Danny Way's a professional skateboarder.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, you jumped over the Great Wall of China. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you're off-road racing, you're escaping from a communist country, you're like Ernest Shackleton in Antarctica.
Oh, my favorite.
All right, like there's some really badass stories in here.
Shackleton's story is the best.
It's the best resilience and grit story of all time. If you haven't read his book South, or Endurance, those are the two. The Endurance. Read those books, because you will just be like, oh my gosh. I super
basically, I mean, what you've done is very good. So you've put, because obviously it would appeal to teenagers, you put them in stories, and they're really engrossing. It's a great way to present those lessons learned.
Yeah, and there's comic book art throughout it, kind of like in the style of Frank Miller, like kind of some gritty, dark, like black and white comics. It's really like a beautiful book.
So a bit off topic, 67 countries. Where is your favorite?
I really love traveling in Argentina, Thailand, South Africa probably is the top though.
Wait, which one? South Africa?
South Africa, yeah.
God, I love Cape Town. What a beautiful town.
That's it, man. Cape Town is where it's at.
Cape Town, Thailand, Argentina, South Africa. You're picking all the countries with the hottest girls. There's a pattern here. But there's
a pattern.
do you have a family or?
I have the family I grew up in, but I don't have of my own at this point. I'd love to, but I really think that like I resisted it for so long because I just had this itch to travel, itch to see the world and climb and experience, like build myself and understand who I am. And now I'm at the point where it comes to me, or the timing is right for that with the right person, I can jump in 100%. Whereas if in my 20s, something similar had happened, like a kid without intending to, then it would have been like, oh crap. Now it'd be like, hell yeah, like I'm ready for that.
Well, listen, man, you got to check out my website, because I've written over 100 city guides for singles guys just like yourself. I'll be pointing you in the right direction. Hopefully it'll be of use to you. What's your plans for the future then? Sorry, I think we might have lost John there. John, are you with us? You're breaking up a bit on me here. Hello, John.
Plans for the future. I'm here.
Yeah, go on.
You with me?
Yeah, you're back.
Cool. Sorry. At the end of this month, and I'm going to be kiting there, kite surfing.
Moving down to Cape Town.
After that, nice. I don't have a. Yeah, I have a one-way ticket down there right now, so we'll see what happens.
Great choice. I love Cape Town. It was the very first place I looked up houses I considered moving. I went from Cairo to Cape Town. So we went the whole way down from Egypt to every single country down to Cape Town. And Cape Town, I swear to God, I was looking up real estate. I was only 20 years old. I was like, I'm moving here. I loved it. Obviously, it has its issues, but what a beautiful place.
Oh yeah, yeah. The physical beauty and like the adventures you can have there are world class.
That's excellent, man. I think we're gonna. Well, actually, before we go though, I got a few questions here. I'll skip all the dodgy ones, these dirty fellas. But I have ones that were actually pre-prepared that I got on Facebook and stuff. We covered a lot of them actually. Why did you write this book? How did you afford this? Hardest mountain to climb? Yeah. So, what was lessons that you learned in terms of, I know you're exposing stuff for young men, but what in terms of, was there any, with three categories here: spiritual, humility, and inner confidence? What, in terms of those three things, what did you gain? Like, was there any spiritual development from these summits?
Yes, is the short answer. It is all spiritual, is what I learned. I've learned that I've in a weird way, I think I've become a mountain as a result of climbing all of these. Like that's what I feel at my core. And a mountain is a beautiful thing in that it can be eroded down over time, over like millions and millions of years. Care overall what has to it. If a glacier carves it out, it just is. If wind whips at it for the entirety of the year at 180 miles an hour, it still just exists. If people come and climb it, it's strong enough to support that. And from climbing all these mountains, somehow I've adopted that part of the mountain where I can see things happening around me almost in a meditative state permanently. And like, I just exist. I just am. And that's beautiful. And I feel like I can support the people in my life who are around me. So it's a very spiritual thing.
Wow, and that's a really beautiful answer. And I think that's probably a good place to leave it, because that was perfect.
Thanks, man.
Listen, John, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Maybe we'll get to meet up sometime in the future on our fellow travels. And yeah, best of luck.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And guys, once again, Warrior Challenge. You can check it out on Amazon. Also, I have John. You can follow John here at John Beede on, I think, Twitter. And is that your handle on Instagram as well?
Instagram, and just search John Beede anywhere online, or johnbeede.com, or search the Warrior Challenge on Amazon.
Okay. Yes. All right. Take care, guys. Until next time.